Namam-damas, namam-damas. Hello, everyone. You know, a little over a year ago, I was transferred to the Los Angeles Higashi Betsuin. This is Higashi's main downtown temple. And, you know, not surprisingly, because it's a big city temple in a very busy urban location, I found working there to be quite stimulating at times. And, you know, one of the most interesting aspects of my job description is that I'm basically the default Betsuin tour guide. You know, for a long time I wondered, you know, how in the heck did I get this job description? I thought, gee, is it because my cubicle is the closest to the front door? And that's the reason why. And nothing more complicated. It's not because I'm a great tour guide. But the Betsuin often receives visitors. You know, most of these people just walk in off the street. And actually, sometimes their questions go well beyond the usual kind of question, which is, the most common question is, when was this temple built? But sometimes they go well beyond that. And as the Betsuin tour guide, you know, of course, I certainly hope that while I'm showing them the temple, that I can, you know, share some of the Buddha's teaching with our visitors. But what I'm talking about tonight is that, on the other hand, I think I'm actually being educated as much or even more than our visitors. And this is because the questions that they ask are the conditions that cause me to reflect on the teachings. So, for example, let's see. I remember the visit of two friends that were on vacation from Fayetteville, North Carolina. So that's Mary Stanley on the left and Thelma Bishop on the right. They had worked together as realtors for many years. And right off the bat, you know, they started asking me questions about the altar symbols, the teachings of Buddhism, and even the development of Shin Buddhism, which, you know, of course, then led me to have to try to explain why the central object of worship on our altar is the symbolic, eternal Amida Buddha and not the historical, human Shakyamuni Buddha. But then I was very surprised that they both seemed to grasp my explanation of this concept of the Trikaya, you know, the three manifestations, or three bodies of the Buddha: the historical Shakyamuni Buddha, the symbolic Amida Buddha, and the eternal ultimate reality or Dharma that Amida is a symbol for. And then, in fact, they then asked me about the similarity that they seem to notice between the Buddhist Trikaya and the Christian Trinity of Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit. Okay, for a moment there, I was wondering, you know, I don't want to open that door too much because I'm not an expert on Christianity, but so we didn't try to weigh, you know, the relative value of the Trikaya and the Trinity, of course, but what we did do, though, is have a very meaningful discussion on the value in our personal lives, regardless of being Buddhist or Christian, of putting our faith or our trust in some kind of beneficial, overarching truth. And afterwards, I realized that I personally had a rather narrow view of these Christians. And I would say that one doesn't have to be a Buddhist to have the attitude of Namu, to have this listening, appreciative attitude. Because these ladies were very open-minded visitors, not Buddhists, but very curious about the Buddhist teachings. Let's see, another example. This is one of the most unusual visitations. We had two pairs of visitors that happened to visit the Betsuin at exactly the same time. And so from left to right, this is Riku Kivilina and Jasmine Rihiniemi from Finland, and Barbara Sammartini and Aline Mello from Brazil. They asked many questions. This was maybe like a 45-minute visitation. But one of the most interesting questions was asked by Jasmine. Jasmine works at a popular hotel in Helsinki, which receives many Japanese tourists. And then she asked me about the meaning of their frequent bowing. Of course, you know, we all know that bowing is ubiquitous in Japan. It can be understood as simply part of Japanese etiquette and polite behavior, but it also has a deeper Buddhist meaning. And I mentioned to Jasmine that the quintessential explanation of bowing is expressed in the larger sutra, the story of how the Buddha on our altar, Amida Buddha, became the Buddha of infinite wisdom and compassion. And in this story, a bodhisattva becomes a Buddha by revering and worshiping countless teachers. In other words, Amida attained Buddhahood because of his humble bowing. And so, in this sense, I think that when someone sincerely bows to us, they're saying, "Thank you very much. I appreciate you very much." And so, if we could bow, not just physically, but in our hearts and minds as well, and see everyone as someone to be thankful for, view everyone with this attitude of appreciation, we too would be Buddhas. I really appreciated Jasmine's question because it reminded me personally that bowing out of etiquette is easy to do, but sincerely bowing from an attitude of deep appreciation is very difficult. I'd like to end my talk with what was one of the most memorable visitations, and this was the visit of two young students from the nearby downtown Magnets High School. So they wanted to interview me about the temple, and then of course, right off the bat, I realized I needed to explain the meaning of the temple's name, Higashi Honganji. And then when I said it to them, they said, "What did you say?" Especially the word Honganji. I remember explaining to the student on the right, whose name is Princess, that the word Honganji refers to the temple of the wish to become an awakened being or Buddha. And that a Buddha is someone who realizes the oneness of all life. And then Princess asked me, "Whose wish is this?" And so I thought I'd test the student by answering her question with my own question. And so I very cleverly said, "Well, Princess, whose wish do you think it is?" After thinking for a few moments, to my surprise, she answered, "Everyone's?" And her answer caught me off guard because, frankly, I was feeling a little smug, after thinking I had stumped her. But I hadn't, and my smugness actually showed that I didn't really understand the spirit of Hongan. Fortunately, though, I think Princess did. So none of these visitors, looked like typical Betsuin members. And I distinctly remember that when I had opened the door for them, I tended to stereotype them. I immediately focused on how different they were from me. But in all of these encounters, once we engaged in dialogue and then standing, so to speak, in the Hondo, in the light of Amida Buddha, as my own limited views were exposed, so too did our differences seem to disappear. So in a very real sense, I feel very grateful to be the Betsuin tour guide. These encounters with our visitors are giving me the opportunity for my own innermost wish to be nurtured. Thanks for listening. Now,